Hello, and welcome back to Mr. Kenrick's online math class. This is lesson 2.4, multiplying and dividing rational numbers with a focus on decimals. Go ahead and turn to the next blank page in your math notebook and write this heading at the top. We will be writing down 5 different things in your notes today. Alright, let's go ahead and get started. The first thing, to multiply or divide rational numbers, we're going to use the same rules as we did for integers. Okay, if you think back to chapter 1 when we were multiplying and dividing integers, these are the same rules. Hopefully this tic-tac-toe grid makes sense to you. You remember seeing it from chapter 1. And it reads from left to right. Okay, so if we have a positive times a negative, we're going to get a negative answer. If we have a negative times a positive, we'll also get a negative answer. If we have a negative times a negative, we will get a positive answer, and a positive times a positive will result in a positive answer. Okay, make sure you write this graphic down in your math notebook so you can refer back to it as you're practicing the problems. Okay, the next thing that I would like for you to write down is some rules that we need to follow when we're multiplying decimals. Okay, the first thing we need to ask ourselves is, will our answer be negative or positive? Okay, and we can get that by looking at our problem that we're solving. Is there one negative? Is there two negatives? Or are there no negatives? And that will tell us if there's one negative, or if there's an odd number of negatives, our answer is going to be negative. If there's an even number of negatives, they will cancel each other out and our answer will be positive. And of course, if we multiply two positives, our answer will be positive. Okay, so second thing, we want to line up the numbers. We're going to ignore the decimals. Don't worry about the decimals until you get your final answer. Okay, and then we can just multiply and then figure out where our decimal goes. Okay, so I'm going to do this one for you. We got 2 1/10 times 5/10. Okay, so I'm going to forget about those decimals and it'll change. We're going to use whole numbers. So it would be 21 times 5. Okay, and then we can multiply. 5 times 1 is 5. 5 times 2 is 10. Okay, so we get 105. But now we need to look back at our problem and see how many numbers are behind the decimal, to the right of the decimal. Okay, so for here we got 1, we got 2. Okay, so now we need to make sure that we get the same number in our answer. So our decimal would go right here. Okay, 1.05. So when we're multiplying decimals, we can forget about the decimal till the end and then go back and check how many numbers are behind to the right of the decimal in our problem and then place it in our answer. So you can pause now, make sure that you have these rules written down in your math notebook. And of course, the last one, we're not using calculators, we're using our strong and smart brains to do these problems. Alright, for this one, I would like you just to watch me go through it, and then you'll get a chance to practice here in a couple minutes. So over here to the right, you'll see some rules. The first one, is our answer going to be positive or negative? Then we can line up the numbers, multiply, and then put our decimal in the answer. Okay, so the first question, is our answer going to be positive or negative? Our answer is going to be negative because we have one negative in our problem. Okay, and then we can go ahead and just multiply. We get 25 times 36. Okay, and then we can multiply. 5 times 6 is 30. 6 times 2 is 12. Plus 3 is 15. Put our 0 down here. 3 times 5 is 15. Carry the 1. 3 times 2 is 6. Plus 1 is 7. Now we can add them up. We get 0. We get 10. Carry the 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. Plus 7 is 9. Okay, so now we got our answer and it's negative. And then we go back and figure out where our decimal goes. So in our problem we got 1, 2, 3 numbers to the right of the decimal. So our answer needs to have the same. And we get 900 thousandths for our answer. Alright, for the second example, we get 3/10 times a negative 5/100. Okay, so we have one negative in our problem, so our answer is going to be a negative. And now we can set it up and multiply. We get 3 times 5, and 3 times 5 is 15. Okay, now we can go and look at our problem. We got 1, 2, 3 numbers to the right of the decimal, so our answer needs to have 3. Okay, and when we're in this situation and we're trying to figure out where we place our decimal, okay, we're going to add a 0, but normally we're used to adding a 0 to the right on our problem, but this, when we're working with decimals, it's going to go on the left, okay, right next to the decimal. So our answer would be 15 thousandths, and 3/10 times 5/100 will give you 15 thousandths. Okay, now it's your turn to do a couple examples. Go ahead and pause the video now, go through these problems, and then come back and see how you did. I'm actually going to go back real quick because I made a mistake. My answer here should have been a negative 15 thousandths. Alright, and for A, we have 2 negatives, so our answer is going to be positive, and then we can set it up as 5 times 5, and that will give us 25. Okay, now we can go back, check our decimals, 1, 2, 3. So we need 3 places to the right of the decimal. So we're going to add a 0 and place our decimal there. And both our numbers in the problem were negative, so they cancel each other out, and our answer is a positive. All right, the second one, we have negative 84 1/10 divided or multiplied by negative 1 and 21/100. So we have 2 negatives, so our answer is going to be positive, and it would be 841 times 121. Going through this, we get 1, 4, 8, put our 0, we get 2, 8, 16, put 2 zeros, now we get 1, 4, 8, now we can add, we get 1, 6, 16, 17, 10, 11, and we get 10. Okay, now going back up, we got 1, 2, 3 places to the right of the decimal, so in our answer is going to be 101 and 761 thousandths. Okay, and if we ask ourselves, does this answer seem reasonable? The question we were trying to solve is basically 84.1 times 1.21. So it's one copy of 84.1 plus 21/100ths of a copy of 84, and so this answer would be reasonable. Alright, so there's how we multiply decimals, and now let's look at dividing. We're going to use basically the same rules. The first one, will our answer be negative or positive? Ask ourselves that question. How many negatives are in our problem? That will tell us whether our answer will be positive or negative. We want to move the decimal and the divisor to make a whole number. Okay, so our divisor is right here, this one. The number on the outside of the setup is called a divisor, and we want to always divide by a whole number. Okay, so we're going to move our decimal, and then if we move it in the divisor, we also have to do the same in the dividend over here to create the same equal operations. And then once we move our decimal, we're going to move in our dividend, we're going to move it straight up into our answer, and then we can divide. Make sure you have these written down in your notes. Alright, I'm going to go through a couple examples here, and then you'll have a chance to do some. Alright, when we look at these problems, I want to make sure that we understand how we read it. The first one says, negative 4 2/10 divided by negative 300ths. Okay, so this is our dividend, and this is our divisor. Okay, so we're going to set it up, and also before I go to that, look to see if our answer is going to be negative or positive, and we're both negative, so our answer is going to be a positive, and then it's going to be set up like so. 4.2 divided by 0.03. Okay, now we want to move the decimal so we get whole number divisor. Okay, so we're going to move 1, 2 to get 3 as the whole number. Now we're going to have to do the same in our dividend. So we got to go 1, 2. Okay, now the first few times you're going to have to practice with these squigglies, but then I think as we go through it, you'll make more sense of it. You won't have to use those squigglies, but as you do that, it will help you to rewrite your problem so it looks a little cleaner, easier to follow. So now we have 3 and then 420. Remember the divisor goes, or the decimal goes straight up into the answer, and so over here I'm going to put it right up in our answer. Now we're ready to divide. 3 goes into 4 one time. Get 3. Then we're left with 1. And then we got 3 goes into 20 3 times. See, I'm going to just say, let's see. So we got the 3 goes into 4 one time, and then we're going to bring down our 2, and then 3 goes into 12 4 times, and that will give us 12, and then we get 0. Okay, now when we're doing with decimals, we have to make sure that we do something over the 0 because it's to the left of the decimal, and so 3 goes into 0 0 times. Okay, so our answer is going to be 140. Alright, for this next one, it's negative 32 4/10 divided by 3. Okay, so we have one negative, so our answer is going to be negative. We're going to get a negative answer. Okay, and now when we set it up, we have, this is already a whole number. Okay, so we don't have to move the decimal at all, but we do need to bring it up from right here. Okay, so how many times does 3 go into 32? 3 goes into 32 10 times. Okay, and then we would get 30. Bring 32 minus 30 is 2, and then bring down the 4. How many times does 3 go into 24? It goes in 6 times. Okay, and then that would be 24, and then we are zeroed out. Okay, so our answer, negative 32.4 divided by 3 would be a negative 10.6. Alright, now it's your turn. Go ahead and pause here, try these ones out, and then come back and see how you did. Alright, for the first one, we got negative 54/100 divided by 3/100, and we got one negative in our problem, so our answer is going to be negative. Okay, and then when we set it up, we have 3/100, so we're going to go to the right, move the decimal to the right twice to get a whole number. And then make sure we put that in our answer. Okay, and now we got 3 and 54. With our decimal, now we're ready to divide. How many times does 3 go into 5? One time. 5 minus 3 is 2. Bring down the 4. 3 goes into 24 6 times. And then we get 24. And we are zeroed out. I'm sorry, 3 goes into 24 8 times, not 6 times, so this should be an 8. And our answer would be a negative 18. Negative 18. Alright, B, we have negative 345 6/10 divided by 2. Okay, so we have one negative, so our answer is going to be negative. And then we're already dividing by a whole number, so we don't have to move the decimal, but we do need to make sure we put it up into our answer. All right, now we're ready to divide. 2 goes into 3 one time, and we'll be left with 1. Bring down the 4. 2 goes into 14 7 times. Now we got 0. Alright, now we can bring down the 5. How many times does 2 go into 5? It goes in 2 times. Now would be 4. Left with 1. Bring down the 6. 2 goes into 16 8 times. That would be 16. And we're zeroed out. So our answer would be a negative 172 8/10. And then for the C, the last one, we got negative 36 hundredths divided by 9/10. And we have one negative, so our answer is going to be negative. I'll put that up there. Okay, now I set it up here with our decimals, and then we need to move them. So we'll move it 1, move this one 1, and up into our answer. And now we get 3.6 divided by 9. Okay, so 9 doesn't go into 3, but 9 goes into 36. 9 goes in 4 times. Okay, so we can put the 4 36. Then we are 0. So our answer becomes negative 4/10. Okay, so negative 36 hundredths divided by 9/10 will give you a negative 4/10.